What is up, guys? It's RSC6414 here, back with another video. This time I'm reviewing TNA Impact Wrestling. Overall, I gotta say the show was okay. It was not the best show by any means, but it was not the worst show. Again, same story with TNA, too many segments, not enough matches. But the first thing we have was, I thought, the best match of the night and the best part of TNA. Abyss versus, or maybe not the best part of TNA, but it was the best match per se. The first match we had, Abyss versus Eric Young Monsters Ball match. If you remember, Eric Young challenged Abyss last week. Abyss accepted. This match was back and forth. At one point, you had Eric Young powerbomb Abyss on a pile of thumbtacks that Abyss poured on the ring. Cut Abyss open. He took a pretty hard bump there. Then another point in the match, Eric Young was on the top rope. Abyss punched Eric Young. Eric Young would fall off the top rope, go right through a table. And then when Eric Young was on his last leg, he was on his knees. Abyss took out Janice, the kind of spiked bat that Abyss has. He was about to hit Eric Young with it. Eric Young grabs Abyss' mask, unmasks Abyss to be none other than Joseph Park. And I knew that Joseph Park was Abyss, and vice versa. I've known that since 2 or 3 weeks into Joseph Park's kind of gimmick as Joseph Park, and I mean, I like him better as Abyss. I hope they keep the Abyss character, but in my opinion, they kind of ruined the Abyss character by unmasking him in a way, because now we know who it is, so it's not as much of a it's not as cool to watch him, but it's still cool, if you know what I mean. I'm still going to be a huge Abyss fan, always. He's always been one of my favorites in TNA. I don't like the Joseph Park gimmick. I hope they stick with the Abyss gimmick, because it's definitely more iconic, more value, and more views. I'm not a huge fan of the Joseph Park gimmick because they act like he can't wrestle, and then when he gets busted open, all of a sudden he can. No. I'd rather them stay with the Abyss gimmick and kind of throw out the Joseph Park gimmick eventually, because I've been ready for them to get rid of that for a while. So hopefully they keep the Abyss gimmick. But yeah, Abyss, once he gets unmasked, he hits a black hole slam on Eric Young for the 1, 2, 3. Abyss picks up the win over Eric Young. Looks at himself in the mirror with a broken piece of a mirror. And is like, I'm Joseph Park. It's like, yeah, I knew that too. But okay, probably one of the better matches of the night, except for the ending. I wasn't a huge fan of them unmasking him. Next, we have MVP come out to the ring, or Bobby Roode was backstage. He says, Dixie, you said I'd get a title shot at the TNA World Heavyweight Championship if I helped out and protected Magnus, which he did. She says, I know, but you just lost the Angle last week, so it wouldn't be fair. How would I explain that? So I'll put you in a match against the #1 contender right now, Samoa Joe, and whoever wins that match will be the official #1 contender for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. That match would happen later in the night. The next thing we had was MVP come out to the ring. He says that basically just talks about how it's time for change, and he no longer, how TNA, Dixie Carter's taken TNA downhill, and it's not the same as it was. He invested this company not just to stick around for part-time, but he'll be here and invest fully and be here all the way. Rockstar Spud cuts him off, comes out. He says Dixie Carter wants them to meet face-to-face. He agrees, but he says the board gave him permission to make a match tonight, so tonight we'll have Magnus versus Kurt Angle in a non-title match, and we end it with that. Later on, we have backstage Bully Ray next to a coffin. He talks about Mr. Anderson. He says, next week, I'm going to put Anderson in this coffin. I'm going to shut the door on Anderson and his career. He was basically trying to say that next week, Bully Ray versus Mr. Anderson in the casket match will happen. If you remember last week, they brawled ringside next to the coffin after Bully Ray challenged Anderson to one final match, which would be a casket match. I'm excited to see this match. I'm a huge Bully Ray fan, and I really do hope that Bully Ray wins this match, because I think whoever gets put in that casket and whoever the door shuts on, I think they'll be gone for a little bit and take some time off. So it'll be interesting to see who wins that match. But fingers crossed for me for Bully Ray. Next thing, and Bully Ray says that whoever he sees next will pay the consequences. Who comes out? Curry Man. He's spicy. He's hot. He tastes great. He's Curry Man. Curry Man comes back. I couldn't resist to sing the little jingle that goes with him. But Curryman comes out, Bully Ray comes out ringside with a casket. He gets in the ring, punches Curryman, pile drives Curryman, puts Curryman in the casket, and shuts the casket door. He says, Anderson, next week in the casket match when I face you, this is going to be you in this casket. Basically saying, next week I'm going to put you in the casket, I'm going to beat you, and I'm going to shut that casket door, ending you. Basically what I said in the segment backstage, he kind of did in the ring as well. But on Curry Man to show an example of how Anderson's going to end up. I liked that segment. It was pretty good, but they buried Curry Man. Next thing we had, Austin Aries comes out of the ring. He says he created Option C, which is cashing in the X Division Championship for a shot at the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. He says the belt doesn't make the wrestler makes the belt, which we mostly agree on that part. At that time, the Bromance music hits. You're like, what's going on? Jesse and Robbie E come out, and behind, Zema Ion hits Austin Aries from behind with his Feast or Fire X Division title shot briefcase. Zema Ion cashes in the briefcase. I'm marking out. I'm a huge Zema Ion fan. I have been since he came into TNA. And him maybe winning the X Division title once again, since all the hardships he's been through with the cancer and the tumor and everything else. He overcame that, so I've been even more of a fan of him, hoping for him to succeed in TNA. I'm thinking in my head that Zema Ion's gonna win this title, the X Division title, because TNA has been taking it off Chris Sabin and Austin Aries for a week, next week, this week, next week, 2 weeks later. We've had new champs, so I'm thinking Zema Ion's gonna win. Back and forth action. Austin Aries would end up hitting the Brain Buster on Zema Ion for the 1-2-3. Austin Aries retains the X Division Championship. They buried Zema Ion. He cashed in. He took advantage of Austin Aries, who was not paying attention. He beat up Austin Aries, basically. Yet Austin Aries somehow hits a Brain Buster and wins the match. I just think they buried Zema Ion a little bit in this, but, you know, I'm sure a lot of people could care less. A lot of people don't like Zema Ion. I can see why. But I'm a big fan of Zema Ion. I'd like to see him succeed. Where they go from here with Zema, he'll still be the Bromance DJ and probably still be part of the Bromance, but who they'll have him feud with, I'm guessing maybe they'll have him feud with Austin Aries. But he failed to win the X Division title on a cash-in, which kind of makes him look a little weak and loses some credibility, in my opinion, every time somebody loses a cash-in. For example, in WWE, Damien Sandow lost, and where is he now? On Main Event almost every week, plus SmackDown and Raw, just kind of putting guys over. So we'll see where Zema Ion goes there, though, because TNA is a lot different than WWE. So hopefully they'll find Zema Ion something to go, because he's got a good part right now with the Bromance as the DJ and entertaining, and maybe they'll have him feud with Aries for the title. So we'll see. But yeah, it's a good match. Good. I did like this segment, how they set up him cashing in, and that was that. But he didn't win. The next thing we had was Christy Hemme talking to Samuel Shaw backstage about last week. Samuel Shaw with this same pedophile kind of rapist serial killer gimmick. Really weird to me. I don't like it one bit. She talks about the mannequin that he had with the hair on it. That was weird. She said he's a good guy, but she just wants to keep things professional. And she said, basically she said, we're not dating and we probably won't be dating anytime soon. She walks away. Shaw gives her an evil look. I wouldn't be surprised in the near future that he'll be like a stalker and then kidnap her or something, because that would be really weird. So, but I really wouldn't be surprised. Gimmick is really weird. I just don't like it at all. But yeah, the next thing we have Dixie Carter talking with MVP backstage. They meet face to face, talking about the future of TNA. She says she built TNA from a small company to an empire. I don't know about that, but she said that MVP has a good reputation, and two good reputations that can work together and probably work together well. He says, let's discuss the future of TNA in the ring, because he wants, in all fairness, he thinks the fans deserve better and should be seeing what's going on in person. And he says, let's talk in person in the ring a little later tonight. She agrees, much to her dismay. She doesn't really agree, just kind of walks out. Next thing we have Kurt Angle versus Magnus in a non-title match. This match was back and forth. Kurt Angle has the ankle lock locked in on Magnus. Magnus is about to tap. EC3 gets in the ring, hits Magnus from behind on the back of the leg, EC3 hits Kurt Angle in the back of the leg, who has the ankle lock locked in. He beats up Kurt Angle with the steel chair. For those of you who, most of you do know, Kurt Angle has bad knees, and it didn't really help after that steel cage match with Bobby Roode at Genesis, and it probably made him even worse, to be honest. So he was working on Kurt Angle's bad knee the whole, 3 minutes he was attacking Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle ends up winning this match via disqualification since Ethan Carter interfered. But Ethan Carter keeps hitting Kurt Angle's bad knee with the steel chair, and he just works on his bad knee the whole time. EC3 finally gets out of the ring. The EMTs come down. Kurt Angle can't even get out of the ring on his own 2 feet, so they have to carry him out on a stretcher. And they'll probably use that to write off Kurt Angle off TV for the next month and a half or so. We'll see what happens, though. I wouldn't be surprised if he came back in 2 weeks, but I wouldn't be surprised if they use this to write him off TV for a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Then we've got our next match, which is the final match of the night. Backstage segment. Chris Sabin, he says, this is the room where me and Velvet had our first kiss. This was on tour somewhere. I guess they were in Glasgow then, too. He said, this is the room where we had our first kiss together. This is the room we had a kiss in, or something weird like that. He basically says he invited Velvet's guy to come into the room and talk. She comes in the room. She shows up. He says he's sorry. His head's been clear more than ever. He realized he made a mistake when he was being a jerk to her. He gets on one knee. He acts like he's about to propose with the ring case. He opens it up. There's nothing in there. She's like, is this some kind of joke? He's like, yes, it is. He goes, I'm tired of being the second wheel of this relationship. It's always Velvet this. How's Velvet doing? How's this? How's that? He says, but everybody thinks that Velvet's had a more successful career than him, and he's tired of being shadowed by Velvet. He says he's the better wrestler. He's held more titles than Velvet, considering she only can hold one, being the Knockouts. He said it's a joke, and he's going to show TNA and everybody that he's better than Velvet, and he never wants to talk to her again. And he says, we're through. I end the relationships, not you. He walks out to her crying, basically to get him over as a heel, which I thought was good, even though it was kind of a slap in the face to Velvet. I mean, obviously it's a segment, but it's a good segment to get more heat on Chris Sabin since Velvet's the most popular knockout in TNA. It makes sense for them to get Chris Sabin over as more of a heel and get more heat on him, in my opinion. So, yeah, I thought that was a good segment there. And then we had our final match of the night, Bobby Roode versus Samoa Joe. Winner is the official #1 contender to the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. Back and forth match. Okay, it wasn't as good as I was hoping, but it was still okay. It didn't get enough time, in my opinion, but Samoa Joe ends up picking up the win via submission. He locks in the Coquina Clutch on Bobby Roode. Bobby Roode would eventually tap out. Samoa Joe defeats Bobby Roode via the Coquina Clutch via submission. And Samoa Joe is the official #1 contender for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. So it'll be interesting to see Samoa Joe in the TNA World Heavyweight Championship picture again, considering we haven't seen him there for 2 or 3 years. So it'll be good to see him up in the main event scene in TNA again. It'll be interesting to see what they do with it, and I hope they don't kind of bury him like they do with Magnus as a champion, because it seems like every time Magnus faces one of the top guys in TNA, like 10 people interfere in the match, bury Magnus' credibility as champion, make him look like a little bitch, and then Samoa Joe, and then like the top guys in TNA, they would use that to write him off, and it just doesn't make sense to me, but whatever, it's gonna have to deal with it, I guess. But I hope eventually Samoa Joe can win the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, or they can stop interfering in every single one of Magnus' title shots, one of those two. But yeah. And then our final segment, final thing of the night, We had Dixie Carter and MVP come face to face in the ring in front of everybody. Uh, Basically, they talked about, Dixie says, we should start I'm going to start the topic on one thing. Let's start from the top. Magnus is TNA World Heavyweight Champion. I think we can all agree that he's one of the best champions. Just basically talks all this great stuff about Magnus, how he's accomplished everything with integrity, and he's setting the bar high for his peers when really we know he's not. She said everybody should try and be like Magnus, and everybody should follow her lead because she knows she's going to take this company to the top, and she knows how to be successful. And MVP basically says he wants to talk about changes. He says, I agree on one thing with you, and that's agree to disagree. He says she doesn't know anything. Basically, he says she doesn't know a wrist lock from a hand lock, kind of dissing her about her wrestling knowledge. He says she isn't here to play with their reign of terror party. Her reign of terror is over. He says she's brought this company to its knees and made this company suffer enough and brought the company down enough. He says, I'm here to make changes, and changes is what I'm going to make. He says, I won't be here for the short run. I'll be here for the long run to make this company better and bring it back to the original TNA. And I'm like, yes, thank you. Because TNA has really gone downhill the past 3 or 4 years. Not like the original TNA when it was actually fun to watch. This is still fun to watch. I still look forward to watching TNA every Thursday, even though it's hard to believe. I'll always watch TNA till the day it dies, but if it ever does, I mean, who knows? But you know what I mean. I mean, this was a good segment, basically going against Dixie and MVP, kind of separating the two, setting up their differences, setting up a feud between them. It'll be good. Good segment. Good way to set it up. Decent show with some good segments and some okay matches. And yeah, so overall grade I'd give this show. I'd give it a 5.25 out of 10. Again, a 5.25 out of 10. 5.25 stars out of 10. This is the overall grade I'd give this show. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Check out my other videos and subscribe. Thanks, guys.